More Nigerians pay Salah homage to President Muhammadu Buhari in Daura, Katsina State.
Federal High Court issues new practice directions on pre-election matters to minimize time spent on interlocutory matters.
African Union supports multinational joint task force with military hardware to strengthen security in the Chad region.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss collective action against corruption and issues in Nigeria's broadcast industry.
Across the globe, one of the many threats hampering human development is corruption, which is like the boneless but intelligent octopus that uses different strategies to evade predators. Now, this is because many persons entrusted with power appear to use it for their private gains rather than for the overall good of the public.
Of course, Kingsley, corruption erodes trust, weakens democracy, hampers economic development, and further aggravates inequality, poverty, social division, environmental crisis, and economic deprivation, which eventually paralyze the society.
Well, like a canker worm, corruption attacks the foundation of democratic institutions by distorting, for instance, electoral processes, perverting the rule of law, and creating bureaucratic quagmires by stunting economic development. And of course, this discourages foreign direct investment in one instance, as well as the startup costs for small businesses.
And the poor and the middle class are the most affected as corruption increases income inequality and poverty through lower economic growth. Biased tax systems that favor the rich and well-connected, poor targeting of social programs, use of wealth by the well-to-do to lobby government for favorable policies that perpetuate inequality in asset ownership and lower social spending, among others.
Even more worrisome, Kirian, is the ability of the monster called corruption to extend its tentacles to the judicial sector, which is usually referred to as the last hope of the common man. Now, in this instance, it damages the right to fair hearing, erodes the independence and integrity of that arm of government.
Favoritism, bribery, inappropriate gifts, double dealing, under the table transactions, manipulating elections, diverting funds, money laundering, and defrauding investors have also been identified as operational tools for corruption in the society.
Well, it could be summed up that corruption as a complex social, political, and economic phenomenon affects all strata of life with its deceptive tendencies and therefore undermines democracy and ultimately growth and development of all persons in the country. Kirian, I mean, there's no gainsay the fact that we are all living witnesses to the rampant effects of corruption in our country.
It's endemic, if you ask me.
Big time.
Well, annually, the African Union marks its Anti-Corruption Day on the 11th of July to draw the attention of Africa to the social unrest, poverty, conflicts, and bloodletting that permeates Africa and the world at large as a result of corruption. How far have we gone in stemming the tide of corruption in Nigeria? Is the elimination of corruption possible at all? These are some of the issues that we'll be examining today on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Kirian Umayo, welcoming you to this edition of the program.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague here to also welcome you to the program. But in addition to what we just discussed with regard to dealing with corruption, we shall also have a conversation around issues in Nigeria's broadcast industry. And that has to do with the move to set up a society for Nigerian broadcasters, Kirian. Of course, in the course of the program, we also have our supplementary segments, and this will include newspaper review and business. For now, we'll take the highlights of the morning news, and here is Frama Panye. Good morning, Frama.
Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the morning news. Former Governor of Borno State, Senator Alimadu Sharif, has described as welcoming and most appropriate the confirmation of Kashim Shettima as vice presidential candidate of the APC for the 2023 elections. This was while speaking to newsmen after an audience with President Muhammadu Buhari in Daura, Katsina State.
It's a very good development. Kashim Shettima, someone who works with me, I literally brought him out from the bank, met him, my commissioner for 5 years or so, and he worked in all the ministries, finance, education, local government. So he has gotten a lot of experience in governance, and he's a very intelligent young man. So I think he can complement the ticket very well.
The Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has assured electorate in Osun that their vote will solely determine who the next governor of the state becomes. The INEC chairman gave the assurance during Osun governorship election stakeholders meeting in Osogbo. The Inspector General of Police attended the meeting.
We are also updating our records to provide detailed breakdown of PVCs collected by polling units. INEC will not take any step to the advantage or disadvantage of any political party or any candidate.
Ahead of the 2023 general elections, the Federal High Court has issued a new practice direction that will ensure fair, impartial, and expeditious determination of pre-election matters. In the Federal High Court Pre-Election Practice Directions 2022, issued by the Chief Judge of the Court, Justice John Soho, parties are to minimize time spent on interlocutory matters. Parties are equally expected to explore possibility of settlement before going into hearing and also minimize undue adjournments and delays in the conduct of matters. A party challenging the conduct or the outcome of a primary election shall join as respondent in the suit the person who emerged winner of the said election or whose name was forwarded by his political party to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Under the Electoral Act 2022, only the Federal High Court has jurisdiction over pre-election matters. The African Union has donated a large consignment of variety of military equipment and logistics to the multinational Joint Task Force to help strengthen security in the Lake Chad region. Force Commander MNJTF Major General Abdul Khalifa Ibrahim, who took delivery of the hardware at the Malari Cantonment, Maiduguri, handed over items to Sector 3 MNJTF Mongono in northern Borno.
The MNJTF facilitated the travel of 6 personnel from Sector 3 to the African Union logistic base in Douala for training. Therefore, we envisage that these 6 personnel will also teach others on how to use this equipment.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has reaffirmed the importance of exploring the hospitality sector as a veritable tool for economic growth and development. The minister emphasized this at an event in Lagos where tourism and hospitality sector were promoted.
Art Hotel is a new addition to the hospitality industry in Nigeria. And this is going to help in boosting domestic tourism.
That has been the morning news. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kieran after this break. Stay tuned.
Every day in our country, senior citizens are discriminated against, disparaged, and treated with disdain by those who ought to respect them. We are all complicit in the way we have treated the elderly members of our society as institutions, families, or members of a shared society. Every time senior citizens get offered less than they deserve for the work they do because they are old, poor, and desperate, we are failing them. Senior citizen loses a child, and wow, they must be responsible for their death. Every time a senior citizen gets labeled a witch, is called mad, and shooed out of the way because they have no memory of where they were headed and look unkempt, we are failing them. We say, abeg, you don't old, make it do die, make everybody for rest, to ailing parents, uncles and aunts. That's discrimination. That is neglect. When you see an old woman getting beat up and being accused of witchcraft, do not turn the other way. Stop and teach people that white hairs, wrinkles and hunchbacks are no evidence of witchcraft. Aging comes with a memory decline. Sometimes it's not out of place to have elderly people lose their way, forget details of their lives, and how to properly take care of themselves. When they get to this stage, they deserve your empathy, not scorn. Our ailing fathers, mothers, aunties, and uncles are deserving of quality healthcare and peaceful transition. Make their last moments memorable. Senior citizens have paid their dues. They deserve your care. Stop all forms of discrimination against them today.
As the world advances, Glorious Vision University Ogwa, Edo State is poised to deliver world-class education rooted in strong academic traditions. In the colleges of law, basic and applied sciences, humanities, management and social sciences, Glorious Vision University is building the next generation of leaders. Hurry now for 2022-2023 undergraduate and postgraduate admissions into any of our NUC fully accredited programs. Secure admission today in one of the fastest growing private universities in Africa. Also note that the university runs diploma, GPE, part-time and tuition-free programs in all colleges. For more information, visit www.sau.edu.ng or call 0705 079 1226. Glorious Vision University, to nurture for discipline and excellence.
The Lona Executive Council, under the leadership of Pastor Dr. E.S. Awojide, JP, National Vice President, TACN and Lona Territorial Chairman, and the Apostolic Church Nigeria, Abuja FCT Area Lona Territory, under the leadership of Pastor J.O.A. Fadigbe, Abuja FCT Area Superintendent, Metro Areas Chairman and Convener, invite the general public to the 23rd FCT Annual Convention. Theme, No Man Can Serve Two Masters. Date, Friday 15th to Sunday 17th July 2022. Friday 4 p.m., Saturday and Sunday 9 a.m. respectively. Venue, the Apostolic Church Nigeria, Abuja FCT Area Headquarters, Plot 494, Durumi District, Garki, Abuja FCT. Come and be blessed. Overseer S.O. Adebite, Convention Committee Secretary, and Pastor L.O. Adeyemo, Convention Committee Chairman, announces.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
Motlalo, Nigeria are the 9th champions in this competition. The 12th edition of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations is here with 12 teams including reigning champions and 9-time winners Super Falcons of Nigeria, all in contention from July 2 to 23 in Rabat, Morocco. You can catch all the actions live on the NTA network service and NTA Sports 24, channel 270 on StarTimes, 434 on StarSat and 731 on Free TV. Come, join us to promote another championship run by the Super Falcons. For your advert placement, please call Hawa on 0803 312 1022. Africa Women's Cup of Nations, Rabat 2022. Game on!
All right, you are watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. Now, let's go business. Global ginger market exceeds $6.82 billion projection as middlemen decried low supply of hides and skins amid high demands. Details of these and more as we bring in Comfort Amodu for business news.
Members of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, have decried the more than 200% increase in the price of diesel, while calling on the federal government to urgently allow them and independent petroleum products marketing companies to import products from the Republic of Niger and Chad. They are appealing to the government to immediately open a post in the axis in order to cushion the impact of the supply gap driven by high cost of diesel. Director General of MAN, Segun Ajayi Kadiri, in a statement expressed concern over the implications of the sharp increase in the price of diesel on the manufacturing sector, including the exertion of untold hardship on the sector. Meanwhile, the tanning industries in Nigeria, alongside the middlemen, have complained of low supply and availability of hides and skin amid high demands.
Well, the COVID relief we have gotten something there, and it has helped during the COVID, after the COVID, for us to pay some of our salaries in order for us not to sack our workers. No economy will thrive without employment, because whatever we do, we export it and we bring back the foreign exchange.
The rams also are a little bit cost than before. And also the skin also, the price of skin is higher than last year. Nigerian
ginger production has been on the rise as global ginger market exceeded $6.82 billion in 2020, as it is expected that the market will reach $8.46 billion. The key drivers of the global ginger market growth, according to Global Ginger Market Report 2021 to 2027, Nigeria was the main producer of ginger in Africa as of 2020, and the country produced more than 734,000 metric tons. With business news, Comfort Amodu.
All right, thank you very much, Comfort Amodu, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next for us, newspaper review.
All right, we now have Bayo Tebi, our reviewer, here with us today, as always. Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Kirian. Good morning, Kensley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin by taking a look at the window page of the Leadership newspaper. We, of course, begin with stories above the nameplate and then come straight down to a few of the other items there on the cover page. Federal government orders contractor to complete 194 Yola Mubi Road project. Voluntary asset declaration. Federal government goes after tax defaulters. And then below the name flag, low remittances mar state's enactment of pension scheme. And then Osun poll, INET issues 1.5 million PVCs as IGP deploys 21,000 officers. Furore over APC running mate. That's the kicker. Muslim ticket recipe for more crisis. Northern Christians warn. Number of riders there demand immediate replacement of Shetima. Vow not to sell same faith tickets to constituents. Let's shun religious ethnic politics. Tinubu campaign group replies. More APC members resign in protest. Northern youths oppose sale of 5 power plants. The terrorists will pamper today, will kill us tomorrow. That's according to Kachuku. 61,000 Boko Haram suspects detained in Northeast. That's according to Arebe Shola. Okay.
Okay, now to the punch and above the main flag. Let's start from there. Oil falls below $100. Nigeria's production hit 1.158 million barrels per day. That's on page 22. Muslim ticket, a disastrous error, ex-SGF Lawal. Details on page 14. Nupeng threatens solidarity strike with ASU. It's on page 24. Blame Nigerians for voting bad leaders. Goats don't vote, as according to Senator. It's on page 8. COVID-19 infections jump by 324% in 1 month. It's on page 29. The federal government plans 3,863 megawatts boost for power grid. That's according to report. Details on page 19. Now the lead story, Oshu governorship poll. Police declare war on vote buyers, deploy detectives. Pages 2 and 14. And it has 2 riders. We have mobilized FIBO operatives against vote buyers. First PRO, over 23,100 security officials deployed as Oshu prepares for governorship poll. Oshimbajo, Arebosola absent. Tinubu APC governors rally support for Oyetola. That's the rally there. And I believe that 18 Catholic priests kidnapped, 3 killed in 2022. It's on page 17. Nigeria records 27 cases of vaccine-deprived polio. You can get more on that on page 13. On page 4, we have Kano seizes expired flour, warns consumers. Now, at the bottom of the Punch newspaper for today, front page, release NDDC's audit report now. Clark tells Buhari, is captured in details on page 13. One-way drivers worsen Lagos-Ibadan road. Gridlock, travelers stock on pages 4 and 5. Christian ticket would have set Nigeria on fire. Cleric Ajelobo. That's on page 7.
Okay, let me quickly take a few headlines from the blueprint and then we'll bring in bio. The blueprint on the right-hand column says fuel scarcity. Abuja marketers flout regulation. Lagos commuters lament spikes. And then you also have Nigeria to make $11.4 billion proceeds from floating LNG plant. And Osun, July 16 governorship poll. INEC wants on vote buying, insists on Electoral Offences Commission on tribunal. But it's either a commission or it's a tribunal. Promises to take elections security and credibility seriously. Says 76%, 1.9 PVCs collected. Political parties hold peace accord today. Oyetola has brought purpose to governance. That's according to Tinubu governors and others. 21,000 personnel deployed for peace, not intimidation. British, Nigerian, Kemi, Badenoch, and 10 others declare for UK Prime Minister. All right, Bayo.
Thank you. Let's start from Daura, where President Muhammadu Buhari has enjoined youths in the nation to look beyond culture, ethnicity, and religion and relate with one another. He urged youth to mingle, travel, and also show tolerance and appreciate the diversity of our country. He was addressing members of the National Youth Service Corps serving in Daura who paid him a visit at his country home. He enjoyed them to have regular, intense and broad vision of Nigeria as a whole and improve on their relationship with other youths from other parts of the country. He says, every time I meet a former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, I always thank him for the NYSC. Before the NYSC, there were people who never moved out of their locality. The scheme has broadened the horizon of many over the years and has reduced tension and as well as misunderstanding among strangers. The authority of the Kuje Medium Security Custodial Center have conducted a roll call of inmates. Of the total of 879 inmates that were reported to have escaped, 443 have been recaptured, bringing the total inmates in the custodial center to 551. 4 inmates were unfortunately killed during the invasion. 16 sustained injuries and are receiving treatment at the hospital. During the roll call, it was found that Peter Nwachuku, being tried for alleged complicity in the homicide of the death of Osinachi, is one of those who had escaped. He was remanded at the Kuje Custodial Center following the trial from a court.
But I also read, I don't know if
that's right. Osinachi's husband is in custody.
She's in the custody. That she
this is reported in the blueprint. So
these another
no, I don't know. Like the blueprint, I have leadership here. Leadership at page 10 is reporting Kuje jailbreak, page 10. That we can't get to that for you to see it on the screen. Osinachi's husband, Wadume, you remember the alleged kingpin kidnapper from Taraba, still in custody.
Okay.
Yes, Osinachi's husband is there, and then Wadume is also there in custody, plus other high-profile prisoners or awaiting trial detainees who are still in custody.
So
but I think, I think the story that we're seeing on the front pages of the papers has to do with the Muslim ticket.
Yes.
By the APC, you're having it's a story that's not going away. I mean, you're having the broad range of reactions, including one that was read by Kirian.
Yes, the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, has actually said that he described it as disastrous, and he's blamed the person he described as lapdog for misleading Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and he stressed that there will be consequences for the choices that have been made because there will be a revolt and that will put the chances in jeopardy. However, another person, lawyer, Babatunde Ogala, a senior advocate of Nigeria, he is also known as the APC lawyer for the Bola Ahmed Tinubu campaign organization, and he says Senator Kashim Shettima, as a running mate, has not violated the constitution. He says that as far as section 14 and 15 of the constitution is concerned, the federal character emphasizes on equity, fairness, and justice, but is silent on religion. And he says that there can be discrimination against religion, as the constitution did not talk about it. I
think Babatunde Ogala, of course, is Tinubu's man. He was a member also of the Lagos House of Assembly. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. But the comments being made, Babachir Lawal is Tinubu's man. In the first instance, he comes from Adamawa State, and he was secretary to the government of the Federation until he ran into a storm over projects in the northeast of the country. Christian Association of Nigeria, they are making comments. Northern branches of CAN, they are making comments. Senior citizen Ike Clark, they are making comments. Some Afenifere members in the southwest are also making comments. So this is a conversation that is not likely to go away anytime soon. Asiwaju Tinubu did say that the spirit of 1993 is upon us. But if you were to stretch that, then you are then going to ask yourself, what spirit of 1993 is upon us today? How did the Muslim ticket come about? In 1993, MK Abiola could go to anywhere in this country and spend the night. He will be hosted by any person. Can that happen today?
It cannot happen today. Well, yeah, I think Babachir's concern stemmed from the fact that he felt that having also advised, Asiwaju Tinubu being a close friend, according to what he wrote, that he's been friendly with him for a very long time. And he's somebody he also has respect for in the political realm. And he tried to convince him that it's going to be devastating to his ambition if he does that. So he was so concerned that, look, how after all the counseling that he put across, he didn't heed to that, which of course must have led to his deciding to choose in fact, he blamed the northern governors, the APC for doing that. But again, some governors in the APC also did not go down well with it, but they didn't make it open because there was rumor or rather concern that some governors from the APC in the north are also not very happy with the decision initially. But subsequently, they began to say that, look, nobody, because Serifai was saying that, look, even if it's only 2 or 3 people, that doesn't mean that all the governors from APC in the north are not happy about the choice of Shettima.
Well, some of the governors that were interviewed said that, well, it is the prerogative of the candidate to choose a running mate. And when he chooses a running mate, he becomes a running mate of the party. And all of them as party members, are obliged to toe the line. So there's been some discomfiture about it all, but it's an ongoing debate that will last between now and the election time in February 2023.
Yeah, I think that, it will even go beyond the election, such as we're indicating here. Because, look, if the ticket succeeds, excuse me, if the ticket succeeds, then almost at every turn, you're going to have complaints and protests to say, oh, this was done because it is against, it is not a situation where you had a Christian voice that was on the table. Christians are a significant population in the country, and already from what we have seen in our country over the years, there's a consistent balancing act. So that you take care of all there are interfaith dialogue groups all across the country.
Everything doesn't have to be in the constitution.
That's right.
Allowed. Britain has no written constitution. They're operating on norms and values of society. And it has been there for decades, if not.
One thing that puzzles me is that there are 18 political parties that are potentially going to contest the election. So people have room for choices.
Yes, that was what.
That's right. They have choices to make, but you also sometimes a race is reduced to a 2-person, a 3-person, or a 4-person race.
What Bishop Kuka said was that, look, that shouldn't pose any problem. You have choices to make, right? So why would it be a problem? That is his own perspective to that.
And if you recall, this issue was first raised during the primaries of the All Progressive Congress at the Eagle Square. One of the candidates specifically was alluding to the fact that he was stepping down because he was against a Muslim ticket. And he was alluding to the fact that already the People's Democratic Party had a presidential candidate who is a Muslim. So the APC should not have a candidate that is also a Muslim. So politicians,
I don't know.
Politicians will always argue from their perspective, or that gives them advantage.
Selfish interest. These are not interest, because the strategy here is that to have more Muslim northerners in terms of population. That if you get a Muslim VP, they're going to win. It's just a strategy to win election.
Well, the PDP has a Muslim presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. Let's assume that's the case, and nobody can say that is on his own a pushover, as it were. The Labour Party has a running mate as from the north who is a Muslim. So it's a complicated issue. Just the point is, whoever wins, assuming it's a Muslim ticket, so that in the course of your governance, you don't get pestered or disturbed by claims that you are doing this because you want to suppress and oppress other religious groups.
All right, gentlemen. Yes, let's conclude this conversation. Bayo,
yes.
Thank you. I know you have much more to tell us, but time is not our friend.
About Australian elections specifically on Saturday, there's a special personnel sent to monitor and arrest people who indulge in vote buying. And
that is if they are not going to be involved too in the whole thing, because we know what the experience of last month or last 2 months, what happened in elections, where they were also accused of being part of the vote buying.
But EFCC arrested some of them.
Okay. All right. We call it today. Bayo, thank you indeed for coming as always. We'll see you again tomorrow. All right, so on to Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we shall be dealing with the two topics we have earlier promoted.
You clean your teeth every morning, but that fresh breath feeling just doesn't last. The answer? Easy. You keep your teeth strong and healthy and give your mouth long-lasting fresh breath with new Oral-B 2-in-1 toothpaste. It helps strengthen your teeth and gives you long-lasting fresh breath.
So fresh, feel fresh, and feel fresh.
Stay strong, stay fresh. New Oral-B toothpaste for strong teeth and long-lasting fresh breath.
What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Millions of Nigerians have received COVID-19 vaccine. I have taken my own. What about you? We have taken our own. What about you? I am strong and healthy. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? We are strong and healthy. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Go and get your job. The hospitals, churches, and the mosques. Go and get your job. Health centers, hurry up now. Don't be late. Go and get your job. Bye-bye, Corona. Bye-bye, Corona.
This message is brought to you by the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, NPHCDA.
Are you aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. Illness-causing germs are everywhere. In unclean bathing water, on your clothes, dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capful. In your bathing water, in your laundry, for surface cleaning, for first aid, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
Lalo, Nigeria are the 9th champions in this competition.
The 12th edition of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations is here with 12 teams including reigning champions and 9-time winners, Super Falcons of Nigeria, all in contention from July 2 to 23 in Rabat, Morocco. You can catch all the actions live on the NTA Network Service and NTA Sports 24, Channel 270 on StarTimes, 434 on StarSat and 731 on Free TV. Come, join us to promote another championship run by the Super Falcons. For your advert placement, please call Hawa on 0803 312 1022. Africa Women's Cup of Nations, Rabat 2022. Game on!
Now, and to start our discussion on collective action against corruption, let's now take this background report with Abdul Salam Jibril.
According to Transparency International, corruption is defined as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. In Nigeria, experts note that the rate of corruption is alarming. They insist that over the years, it has affected every aspect of public life, business investment, and standard of living. They also emphasize that corruption cuts across different sectors that includes the police force, educational institutions, political institutions, health, energy, and many other sectors. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime estimates that close to $400 billion was stolen from Nigeria's public accounts from 1960 to 1999, and that between 2005 and 2014, some $182 billion was lost through illicit financial flows. Corruption not only fosters more corruption, it also weakens societal values of fairness, honesty, integrity, and common citizenship, as the impunity of dishonest practices and abuses of power or position steadily erodes citizens' sense of moral responsibility to follow the rules in the interest of wider society. Over the years, Nigeria has sought to tackle corruption through governance-based measures that include public financial management, anti-corruption laws, establishment of various agencies tasked with preventing corruption and punishing those who engage in corruption. However, a fair amount of success has been recorded so far. Some experts advocate innovative and complementary approaches to foster a comprehensive shift in deeply ingrained attitudes to corruption at all levels of society. Others advocate collective action in the fight against corruption that involves all stakeholders and citizenry in the Nigerian project. How can this be achieved, and how much will it help towards mitigating corruption in Nigeria? Guest on the program will be speaking on collective action towards tackling corruption in Nigeria shortly.
Thank you very much, Abdul Salam Jibril, for that background. And now joining us in the studio for the conversation on collective action against corruption, we'd like to welcome Professor of Criminology at the University of Jos and also a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC, Professor Etanibi Alemika. He's a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Professor Alemika, delighted to have you on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. Also joining us via Zoom, if we can reach his Zoom. We understand that his Zoom is, well, of course, it's on the screen. It's on the screen. So that's Professor Sadiq Rada. Professor Rada, another professor of criminology. He is the executive secretary of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. Professor Rada, we are glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
We have a very clear signal.
Absolutely. The audio is
sharp. So let's begin with you, Professor Rada. When we talk about the word corruption in Nigeria, Tinsley has refused to leave our lexicon, our daily discussions and conversations, affecting all sectors of our development. And Nigeria joins other nations on an annual basis, to bring to the fore the issue of corruption. So every year we join the world to commemorate Anti-Corruption Day. So far, how have we fared, in terms of fighting corruption? What is your assessment of how the fight has been over the years, in fact, for decades now? What is your assessment of this fight against corruption that has refused to leave the fabrics of the nation's development?
All very good morning, Nigeria. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I must say that with the coming of this government, we have seen a lot of action regarding the fight against corruption. Like you are aware, the government promised to fight corruption, improve security, and improve the economy. And since the coming of the government, if we take the reality on the ground, you see that a lot of progress has been made. But you will ask yourself, what are the indicators? There are many indicators that will convince everyone that with the coming of this government, a lot of effort has been made to fight corruption. This includes arrests, prosecutions, convictions, introduction of technology, a lot of reforms in the public and private sector, involvement of the civil society organizations in the fight against corruption, reforms in the judiciary, recovery of looted funds, collaboration with our international partners. So a lot of water has passed under the bridge in the fight against corruption in Nigeria. And I must say, we have achieved a lot. Even though we keep saying we have achieved a lot, I keep saying that we are not where we were, but we are not where we want to be. We have made modest progress, but we have a lot of work to do. Clearly, there is simply no agency of government, no anti-corruption agency, no single individual or media outfit that can fight corruption effectively and successfully in any country, not only in Nigeria. Therefore, we feel collaboration, cooperation, coordination, concerted efforts by all critical stakeholders is necessary, very important, and is something that must be done to make sure we get rid of corruption in Nigeria. And that's why, as a country, we feel happy that the African Union marks the AU Anti-Corruption Day on the 11th of every July in each year. We partner with them, we encourage them, we try to keep hope alive. Without fighting corruption, Africa will never ever be stable. You can see what illicit financial flows is doing to Africa. You can see what safe havens in the United Kingdom, in Europe generally, in America, in Canada are doing tonight to Africa. Therefore, African continents must rise to the occasion. African leaders must rise to the occasion. Battling corruption is an active ingredient in making sure that we have an Africa of our dream. Without fighting corruption, we'll continue to have problems in our continent, and that will be bad for our people. So I must say, we have made modest progress. We are still battling corruption. It's work in progress, but I must tell you, we have achieved a lot based on the facts on the ground. Never mind all these sensational media reports by especially Daily Trust, which is just watering. Go and look at the statistics. 2015 to date, use what is universally accepted as statistics for measuring progress in the fight against corruption. You will see that Nigeria has made modest progress, but I must admit we have a lot of work to do.
All right, Professor Rada, thank you very much for your initial response to our question. And we'll bring in Professor Etanibi Alemika and to take up from where you just left off, namely that progress has been made in the fight against corruption, institutional reforms, arrests, prosecution, conviction, and so on and so forth, and some of the numbers that, of course, could be available if one digs deep. But there's still a lot of work to do, as Professor Rada says. Let's look at just one aspect of that work to do. How much public support is there now in the fight against corruption? I mean, it's a couple of years ago, you could hear anti-corruption on the lips of virtually everyone on the street. But today, is it the same thing? And if it is not, why is that so?
Thank you, Kingsley. I think corruption is on the lips of everybody in Nigeria today. And the reason is the connection between corruption and underdevelopment. Nobody is going to deny that economically we're not doing well today. Nobody is going to deny the fact that most Nigerians wake up and they are stressed and they are concerned about living. And most of this can be attributed to corruption. So in that respect, Nigeria are very conscious that their plight is related to corruption. We're also talking about insecurity. Literature shows very clearly there is relationship between poverty, corruption, and violence. So what is that corruption? Corruption of many types, and when I'm saying corruption now, we're dealing with both financial and non-financial. But basically what it does, it drains resources away from public good to private interest. And to that effect, it impoverishes majority to the advantage of a few. So in the context of Nigeria, I think almost on a daily basis, people are pointing fingers at people who are poor, who are corrupt. And unfortunately, because it's so pervasive, it's become this almost this giant monster that we almost feel helpless, we cannot confront. So people are actually resigning from fighting corruption. That's why it looks as if it's not on the lips of Nigeria. But I think it is still a major issue today. I think also part of the issue we have today is about corruption. And I talk about helplessness, is the inconsistency in the fight against corruption itself. And in recent times, we found also discouragement. But unfortunately, almost everyone in Nigeria is a beneficiary of corruption. When I give a lecture, I ask who has not benefited from corruption. And you find people, because we think of corruption in many dimensions, and people say, oh no, I haven't. And I know a minister who said he's never received a bribe. Not receiving a bribe is not that you are clean of corruption, because there's also nepotism. And nepotism is actually more destructive than financial corruption, in the sense that it replaces competence, values with anything goes. And so Nigerian institutions today are weak because of corruption. So that's the dimension. Corruption is worldwide, and I think another dimension for us in Nigeria is other countries where people steal, they invest within that economy. So when there is no poverty as a result of those investments, many people do not wake up remembering corruption because they have a job, they can live a decent life. Of course, resources are being distributed through corruption. So in our case, when people steal in the morning, in the evening, they're in Dubai or other foreign countries. So these are the various dimensions of corruption in our setting. Now ask, are we fighting it? I think rather has said from government view perspective what government is doing. But again, there is nowhere in the world where the government alone can fight corruption, because corruption is actually about a norm. It's about a behavior. It is about values. And these are the most difficult problem to solve. When you have erosion of values, erosion of norms, the reorientation for proper norms can be very difficult and can be long-term investment. So in our own case, like I said, everybody hopes one day I will benefit corruption. And all this you are seeing about politics, about it must be my own. Yesterday I was watching Osun Rally. What we thought was a slip of tongue had actually been dramatized, now become a popular notion. Emilokan, it's my turn. Your turn to do what? I think it's Emilokan to jali, to steal. So when that becomes ingrained in our politics, in our economy, in our social life, then we're in trouble. So even the notion of fighting corruption by government alone, government will use law. So it's now realized that law enforcement alone cannot fight corruption. If it can, the avalanche of law and legal institutions and agencies we have in Nigeria, we shouldn't be talking about corruption today. But the more law we have, the more agencies we have, the more we are confronted with this monster called corruption. It is in that context that the idea of collective action actually came up as a new paradigm shift in the last decade.
All right. There are some points, that you raised, which is very, very important, and that, like Professor Radat also, bear his mind on some of those points. And that is to say that from his explanation, it appears that corruption is endemic. Corruption is practiced in virtually all the institutions established by government, and it's not just that it's healthy in those institutions, but it's that it has also crept into the judiciary, which of course, put the nation, in a kind of almost a disaster to the level of the fact that we have such, accusations and all of that at the highest echelon of the judiciary. So, what are we not doing right in terms of this fight against corruption? When my colleague was talking about corruption is not in the lips of Nigerians, he meant that, look, that people are not speaking against it as it's supposed to be. We used to have the days of why we're against indiscipline. It's in everybody's lips. Everybody tries to practice it. So we're not taking the fight against corruption to the level where many Nigerians are aware. Is it because many are benefiting from that? Because even when you're not an authority and you're benefiting from somebody who is in authority, who has the power to dish out money and all of that, you're also benefiting from corruption. So what are we not doing right with respect to the fight against corruption? Irrespective of the fact that we know we have the graft agencies who are directly responsible for that, what are we supposed to also be doing as citizens of this country in the fight against corruption?
Yes.
Well, frankly speaking, there are quite a number of things that are not being done in this country which are motivating corruption. One of them is the almost failure of the family to inculcate the right values in the children. Many people believe whatever children can go and get and bring home, so long as it's material, is going to benefit the family, people accept it. That's a major problem. Secondly, parents, in most cases, have failed to be parents because sometimes implicitly or explicitly they support their children into activities that are nefarious. That's a big problem. Secondly, schools, primary schools, secondary schools, universities have become affected. Thirdly, people are religious in Nigeria, we say, but we are very ungodly. Religion is just a fantasy. People profess religion, but in practical terms, they don't go about practicing what the religion has said. A combination of these three major factors have crashed Nigeria: families, schools, and our religious sector. Added to that is the failure of the media in Nigeria to conduct what is called investigative journalism. Very spurious allegations, very wild assumptions, very unfounded statements, like we read almost simply because you are a journalist does not give you the license to simply castigate a government, a people, a nation, a country, the young people. Being a journalist is not a license to simply say whatever you want to say. You should say what you want to say, but back it up with facts. So we have big problems. Then we have the collapse of the judiciary. Then if you look at what is happening in Nigeria, many people, with the coming of this government, they felt that fighting corruption simply begins and ends with the president and the vice president. Ministers are not doing what they're supposed to do. The National Assembly is not supposed to do is not doing what it's supposed to. Then go to the governors, go to the local governments. Look at our commissioners, look at our state assemblies, look at our permanent secretaries, look at our directors, assistant directors. All these people must play a role in the fight against corruption. The president is good, the vice president is good, some key ministers are good, but then you need the governors, you need the local government chairman, you need the National Assembly, you need the judiciary, you need the media, So for people to assume that, for me, fighting corruption simply means having good ministers, even though I am bad, is simply counterintuitive. You must be able to do what is right in your very small space. As a lecturer, I must go to the class on time, deliver on my mandate. As a banker, you must do what is right. Therefore, people should realize that it is not enough to fight corruption in government circles. Corruption must be fought at the informal sector, in the formal sector. Corruption must be fought collaboratively. Corruption must be fought individually. People in this country must have integrity. We make a lot of noise in the media. We write a lot. We make high-sounding statements. But when the chips are down, we are asked to do certain things. We fail. We refuse to do it. I have said it consistently that a majority of Nigerians lack integrity. Integrity is why you do what is right, even nobody is watching you. But I feel we are changing. The battle must continue. There is no going back. No matter what it takes, let's continue to battle corruption. We should not accept the label and stigma that Nigeria is corrupt. We shall never and ever accept the stigma that our country is corrupt. Corruption happens everywhere. Our young people should be encouraged to understand that the country is not corrupt. It can be better for us, but we all have to work very hard. Before the coming of this government, corruption was a pandemic in Nigeria. Now it is endemic. We hope as time goes by, corruption will become infectious. It's our duty to help, to participate, to contribute, to change our soul, to search our conscience, and see what is it that we are doing that
Professor
is bad.
Rada, thank you. Thank you indeed. If time warrants it, we're going to return to you. Prof wants to also say something concerning the issue that I raised earlier on, and of course from Professor Rada.
Yeah, corruption is behavior. And what is it that drives behavior? It's incentive or deterrence. You either create incentive for people not to be corrupt, or you create a system of deterrence, that people will have consequences for their behavior. One of the things we are not doing, we don't have enough incentives. Incentives, when I mean that, I mean the whole spectrum from child rearing, inculcating values, internalizing values, all through life course. When we talk about socialization, it's not about the child. It is also, as we grow up, you join an organization, they tell you these are our values. Now it is possible, in the 2 decades ago, you don't get this. Now, every organization must have a value, must have a mission, must have core values. Now value has been recognized as the driver of behavior. I think what has happened in Nigeria is over the years, our values have been eroded. Anything goes. We used to have, for example, also multiple incentives. We have, in a sense, brought all incentives in one indicator. You find traditionally, if you do well as a broadcaster, there will be a chief of broadcaster. There will be chief of hunters, chief of farmers. So all these chiefs come together in decision-making society. But once we made a mistake that it doesn't matter whatever you do in your respective vocation, what matters is the amount of money you can show. I think that's the crisis. As long as we judge the value of human being by the amount of money that person possesses, we will continue in this direction that we have chosen for ourselves and the monster that we have created for ourselves. So what we then do you do that? It means you have to have, again, a deterring mechanisms. And deterring mechanism is start from the process. You make it difficult for people to be corrupt by looking at the processes. Then the second thing, of course, is to have enforcement of those processes to make sure that there's compliance, and part of it requires transparency and accountability. We do not have accountability in this country and impunity, and I give you very practical examples. You have Federal Character Commission. Go and check employments that have been made over the years, including this year. You will find there is no adherence by all the agencies to that principle and the reason for which that is set up. But nobody is holding Character Commission accountable for that deviant behavior. That can be multiplied for all institutions. You look at admission. Take something simple like NUC, satisfied that every department has a carrying capacity, which is relates to all the strike we're having, a carrying capacity of 100. That class is going to end up with 300 admissions, most of them in most of Nigerian universities through the back door. And JAMB will issue admission letter to those people. Again, who is holding JAMB accountable for issuing excess admission in excess of carrying capacity? Nobody is doing it. Take each of the agencies. Judiciary. We talk about corruption now in judiciary. I think because of the rebellion that took place about 4 weeks ago, people are looking at that level. People have always known that the system had been corrupted for almost 2 decades. And what is it happening? Again, it's lack of impunity. We all watch when there has been a dynasty in politics, a dynasty in judiciary. Dynasty in politics in the sense that almost all governors have their children now either running for or their wife, running for governorship, House of Assembly, and the rest of it. So that's a form of dynasty. You go to judiciary, their children are now being brought in from high court to replace them. So we're having a corruption that is going around the cycle through parental inculcation, even in the children. So we're just not holding accountable. Impunity is one major cause of that. But value retention,
thanks a lot.
It's very important.
Thanks a lot, Professor Alemika. I would like you also, Professor Rada, to speak to what Nigerians witnessed recently in politics, and how, in your opinion, that has either dampened or advanced the cause of the fight against corruption. Political parties were charging tens of millions of naira for nomination forms in this same economy. At the party primaries, the word of mouth, I know that Professor Rada this morning has lambasted the media, but there were widespread reports of the dollarization of party primaries. And a few persons asked questions, look, how could this be happening in the face of the various anti-corruption agencies, and there's no accountability? What has this done to the fight against corruption? This whole year that we have seen this barefaced attack on the sensibilities of Nigerians through, as I said, the cost of nomination forms and the alleged bribery of delegates at primaries, and we're said to have been bribed in hard currency.
Well, again, and I think Kingsley knows my view on this very strongly. I've expressed it. Many of the institutions of government, especially in politics, are themselves corrupt version of what they ought to be. What we call political parties in Nigeria are actually corrupt version of what political party ought to be in a democratic system. In a democratic system, political parties are supposed to be able to galvanize or articulate the divergent policy options and use that to attract people to vote for them. But because political parties in Nigeria, if they are parties at all, I think these are just network of people with questionable behaviors most of the time. And you bring them together, they're using this vehicle that the law has allowed to be used to capture power, to loot. So once you have that kind of system, which has no value, no ideology, then we are not surprised we have what we saw the other time. But what it does is that a government created by those kind of process cannot have the legitimacy to fight corruption, because it's rooted in corruption, it's brought to power by corruption, it's don't govern by corruption. And that is why I'm afraid for Nigeria, whether we're not going to have a cycle of 4 wasted years again. So that's the challenge. Karen is looking at this age, I can't stammer about what I think is going on in Nigeria. Yes. So when you see those kind of amount that is being expected, it means they've excluded honest people from the political process, because anyone with honest money made from, where do you make your money? From hard work, from investment. You'll be careful to use it that way. So those kind of amount have already excluded honest people. And so we're going to end up with the people who can buy the process. And I think that's the challenge. Okay,
Professor Rada, you can also come in here as well. The issue my colleague pointed out concerning the past primaries and nominations by political parties in Nigeria.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Yes, frankly speaking, it's very disappointing the way our political parties have monetized the entire process. And I feel very strongly that if we really want to have a democracy that is beneficial, not something like a company, like a private sector company, then INEC must be supported to ensure that the process is demonetized. Frankly speaking, where people are asked to pay as much as 50 million, 100 million to purchase a form, 20 million to purchase a form, 10 million to purchase a form. It's just counterproductive. But this is something that no government agency alone can do. That's why I always encourage civil society organizations to come in and ensure that they support INEC and they support the political parties to make sure that resources do not determine who becomes a flag bearer. Money, over monetization of politics will derail the entire process so much so that people are going to concentrate on spending their money, getting to the office, then not rendering service to the people. And that will create more social unrest in this country and in the continent as a whole. I feel the influence of money and the way we are taking it, sometimes we have turned it into something to be laughed at. We keep saying, is it delegate tea you want or ASU tea you want? You see, very serious matters are turned into mockery in Nigeria. This delegate issue should be taken very, very seriously. Monetization of our political process should be taken very, very seriously, because this is what produces the leaders. And if somebody who wants to occupy an office has to spend through their noses to get to the office, then tell me how they will go and perform. So I believe we should put this on our national agenda, that we must do whatever it takes to reduce the influence of money in our political process. And that one should begin with especially INEC. But INEC alone cannot do it. It has too many, problems that it is confronting. It is reforming, it is improving. Therefore, to add this one and expect 100% result from it alone will not be easy. But civil society organizations like Yaga Africa, like CISLAC, like HEDA, all these civil society organizations that are active should come and support INEC. They should also work with political parties so that we have a system that is, fairly not monetized. Of course, there has to be money, but this kind of influence of money will only make the country even more corrupt. And those who are credible, who are honest, who are sincere, who can perform, who can deliver, will naturally be excluded for many reasons. One, many people don't feel comfortable going to spend money to get to office. Because if you really want to go and serve, why do you have to buy the position? Secondly, many people don't even have the money to go and compete. So this one is serious. Let's not be mocking the issue. Let's take it very seriously. It's something that will consume our country if we leave it unchecked.
All right, Professor Rada, thank you very much. I see the perspective that you have brought in. Again, getting civil society organizations, getting INEC, and so on and so forth. But corruption, depending on the way it happens, if it's a financial dimension to it, it's an offense. It's a criminal offense. And yes, even though citizens also have powers of arrest, but the powers are limited. And there are specific agencies of government that could deal with this. This is not a fresh issue, because we had a conversation around this on Good Morning Nigeria to say, look, where were the anti-corruption agencies? I mean, could they be embedded? Were there arrests that were made? If arrests were not made, how come the perpetrators were able to evade the searchlight of the anti-corruption agent? How did they get under the radar, as it were? And yet, it was an open conversation as to what was playing out. I mean, Professor Alemika, I know you made the point about saying this now has already excluded competent persons, but we already have a broad range of nominations across the lines, and according to the law, these are the persons that will stand for election. So what does that's why I asked the question at the beginning, after my colleague posed the initial question, namely, why are we not hearing this on the lips of Nigerians? Anyone who witnessed that kind of scandal, as some described it, how would you want the person to be a champion of anti-corruption when the law itself or the agencies have not responded appropriately? Prof.
Nigeria has no problem doing that and still be an anti-corruption
champion.
Yeah, that's part of it, because we no longer have conscience in the usual way that discriminate between good and bad. It's pragmatism. Anything that works is okay. So for those who are involved in it, like young people say, they've hammered. It's an opportunity, and they've exploited that opportunity. There was a cartoon that came up that week when they were, dollarizing the whole thing. And they asked a young boy, what do you want to become when you are old? He said, I want to become a delegate. And, when I keep returning to question of value, what are young people saying from communities, from rural areas? When we're talking about, we're focusing on Abuja. This thing started in the village. Ward delegates were purchased. To local government delegate, they were purchased. To state delegate, they were purchased. Then to the national delegate. So we're actually taking corruption to the rural communities. That's why the muted voice we're talking about is happening. Because we have actually normalized corruption in almost every relationship. So I don't know, if we don't deal with value that is repugnant, that sees corruption as repugnant, we're not going to go where. For example, outside of formal structures, which probably that's the only way it can happen, but it's also a difficult route. If instead of joining which amongst the Alibabas will be president, and there's a movement to say, look, if you know that somebody is corrupt, don't vote for them during the election. Don't vote for that party. It may not happen in the first election, but over 2-3 elections, maybe we'll have a change. I think it's working outside of the formal structure and begin to mobilize citizens. What we're doing for now is to mobilize within and verbalize the things within the formal structures. There must be a group of people who are themselves probably not seeking power, but feel that corruption shouldn't be a driving force in our society, and begin to, reorient people in that direction. When you refer to why, incidentally, unfortunately, the context has changed. The context has changed. You can't implement why today in the world a way that was in 1984. I'll give you a shocking part of the thing that you are embarrassed with. We were in Rwanda, and Rwanda is a very clean, at least the headquarters, very clean.
Kigali.
Yes, Kigali. And when we asked one of the chaps who were with us, I said, this place is very clean. And the guy looked at us, he said, yes, thank God for Nigeria. So he said, what did you mean? He said, we actually picked that from monthly environmental sanitation in Nigeria, and we've used it to make sure that Kigali is clean. In Nigeria, you will remember that Lagos State was taken to court and said it's violating freedom of movement, and that was cancelled in Lagos. So you just can find that also we have a legal system that is very individualistic and it has no collective interest. So we must run through the whole, not just governmental agencies. I think there is excessive focus on governmental agency as sources of corruption, but it is the target of corruption. So it cannot solve it because it is target. That's why, apart from federal government, who is talking about corruption at the state level? Who is talking corruption about local government?
That's a valid point, Kyria.
Yes.
So, who talks about it?
Yes. So, and that we are now in a place, you remember in the 1970s, I can't remember whether it's Peter Tosh or something, who said, if everybody is talking of a criminal, who are then the criminals?
Yeah, it was Peter Tosh.
Yes. So, it was part of the music in the 70s when we were...
That was reggae.
Yeah, when we listened to music too.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kyria, Peter Tosh got assassinated in Kingston, Jamaica in 1987.
He was robbed, and he refused to give.
Yeah, so unfortunately, may so rest in peace. That album of his was a collector's item. A chat buster.
Yes.
So that is the Nigerian situation. Everybody is talking about corruption. Who then are the corrupt people?
All right, Prof. It seems that The fabric of our society has been infested by corruption. It's not just in politics, but about education, in health. You mentioned about parental inculcation of discipline, norms, and values of the people. He also mentioned that the buying of delegates started from the local, from the villages.
Yes.
So it had cut across all strata of society. And my concern now is, what do we do to begin to fight it from the roots? And I want to bring in Professor Rada here again. How do we ensure that parents are not involved in corruption? Some parents write to WAEC exams for their children. They pay for it. People pay for their children to gain admission into some universities. Of course, I was involved on one occasion where we said, look, if you pay up to 500,000 naira to secure admission for a particular course. If you are studying medicine, for instance, you want to study medicine, for instance, your son will pay close to 1 million naira or more to gain admission, even when he passes the examination. So these things have been there. Apart from politics, apart from government, our people. And Professor Rada, what can be done in this connection with respect to ensuring that Nigerian parents, not just modern parents, even the older ones, are also involved in this corrupt practice? So the children have also learned that you have to do things in certain ways to be able to survive. If not, you are left behind.
Well, I frankly speaking, I believe Nigerians have to search their souls and they have to search their conscience. It is okay to complain. It is okay to accuse government. It's okay to castigate government. It's okay to abuse government. It's okay to attack a president, a vice president, ministers, National Assembly, etc., etc. But please take a moment and search your soul as a person, as a Nigerian. Ask yourself, what role did you play to make Nigeria what it is today in the past? What contribution, negative contribution, have you given to make Nigeria a mess that it is today in the past? Because you just can't keep complaining. If you are part of it in the past, you are part of it today, and you are willing to take part in the mess tomorrow, then you have lost your moral voice to complain. So Nigerians, please complain about everybody who is in government, but also look at yourself. What is it that you are doing to make things better for the country? What is it that you are doing to make Nigeria a terrible place? Because you cannot plant garden egg and harvest apple. If you do bad things as a person, somehow, someway, these bad things will also come to you. So I feel we can solve this problem. Like we have been saying, there must be a elite consensus. The elite in the country are intensely involved in competition for money, competition for power, competition for positions, competition for nearly everything. And along the line, the country and ordinary Nigerians are suffering. So let us have a genuine conversation regarding the behavior of the elite. Without that, there will be problem. There will continue to be problems. Secondly, every one of us must take personal responsibility. EFCC, ICPC, NFIU, Code of Conduct Bureau, the Nigeria Police Force, Custom, Immigration, all of them cannot police us in our homes. They cannot be everywhere. So people must have some value. You must have some self-respect. That's why you have education. That's why you are an adult. That's why you are a parent. As an adult, as somebody with certificates, with degrees, don't tell me that you have to be scared by ICPC, EFCC, or Code of Conduct Bureau for you to know which side. So we must take personal responsibility. Let us be satisfied that what is wrong, even if everybody is doing it. What is right, even if nobody is doing it. So commit to yourself to do what is right, no matter the consequences. Commit to yourself to shun what is bad, no matter the consequences. Without that, we'll continue to have this problem. So elite consensus is very good. Personal responsibility is very good. Then parents must be parents. Teachers must be teachers. Religious sector must be religious sector. Commercialization of life in Nigeria is taking its toll on our country, and we must stop it.
All right, Professor Rada, thank you very much. We're getting pressed for time now. Let's come back to Professor Alemika. Professor Alemika, very quickly, you talked about inconsistency in the fight against corruption. Well, of course, a number of gains have been recorded. What is this inconsistency and how might it be overcome? Very briefly.
Well, thank you. Let me just, if you give me 3 minutes, one minute.
No, 3 minutes. No, we won't be able to do that.
Okay.
Instead, I will give you 20 seconds for each of the items.
Okay.
So
we actually say collective action is the topic of this discussion. Unfortunately, we've not had time to deal with it. What is happening in collective action globally is this realization that government cannot fight corruption alone. So industries are making commitment that in construction we will not offer bribe. In banking, we will not offer bribe. And this is becoming the movement over the last decade. I wish we actually have opportunity to have, because yes, because that is one way we might begin to. There are codes by different sectors of society operating, and they enter into it amongst themselves: construction, finance, banking, manufacturing. So that's the collective action, that we're talking about. Finally, in terms of what we need to do, it was Claude Ake, the late Claude Ake, who said the problem with Nigeria is the people who have responsibility to solve the problem are the cause of the problem. That's the crisis in Nigeria today. The people have responsibility. We're talking of dollarizing. It's vote buying. Why are we chasing those women that are collecting 10 naira on the election day, but we are not chasing people who collected $20,000? We're chasing 5,000 naira on the day of election, $20,000 on delegates day. These are inconsistencies I'm talking about. Then, of course, I think we need to be responsible in the way we grant pardon. We need to be responsible in it. We must be nationalistic in the way we grant pardon. There are two things under that provision. There is commutation, in which somebody is sentenced, you commute it to a shorter one. That is a prerogative of mercy. Pardon means that offense never occurred. I think it would be responsible to say, of an offense that gained conviction never occurred. These are part of the inconsistencies.
Yeah, that is to say, Professor Alemika, that is to say, in the case of corruption convictions, there should be no pardon, which is a legal fiction that erases the conviction in the first instance for an offense.
It should never happen.
It should never happen.
Yes, you can commit as an act of mercy for on ground of health, on ground of age, but not to say the crime never occurred.
Occurred, that's right. Professor Etanibi Alemika, regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, and Professor of Criminology and member of Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. We'd like to thank you for being our guests on the program this morning. And via Zoom, we were joined also by another regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Professor Sadiq Rada, another Professor of Criminology and Executive Secretary of PACAC, that's the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. As we know, this is an ongoing conversation. At some other time, we'll have the opportunity of examining in broader details some of the elements of the collective action against corruption.
Yes,
very important because
of time we were unable to even delve into the areas of the religion, the rule of leaders, religious leaders,
prosperity preachment, and so on and so forth. And the fact that, as recognized, Nigeria has the highest cost of construction. Road contracts are inflated. So if you have that collective action, what will the industry itself be made to
self-regulate?
To self-regulate and then obliged to do. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll take a second topic of our discussion this morning.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Are you an entrepreneur? Are you involved in farming, manufacturing, servicing, and other specialized value chain creation in non-oil export commodities? The Organization of Youths in International Trade and Commerce, OYITC, in partnership with NTA Television Enterprises Limited, is organizing a Made in Nigeria trade show and exhibition in Texas, United States, tagged Houston 22. Houston 22 is designed to promote creativity and productivity of Nigerian youths and women entrepreneurs, enhance economic empowerment, and attract foreign direct investment into Nigeria. It is scheduled to hold from 25th to 30th of July 2022 at the prestigious Expo Event Center, Houston, Texas by 9 a.m. daily. For registration, advert placement, and sponsorship, please contact Nafisat on 0803-331-0992 and Chingwe on 0905-596-1514. For further details, visit www.oyitc.com or www.ntatve.com.ng.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every